Long time no see. Other than on
I
Facebook.
know. I know. It feels like
I
forever.
know. Can you believe we started like almost 20 years? Well, it'll be 20 years next year.
What? Oh, wow.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Overcome by My Testimony. I'm a survivor. Today I am speaking with my Howard sister that I've known for almost, well, we won't say how long. We won't say, but we don't look like it. We don't look like we've known each other for 20 years because we're just 20
Oh,
ourselves.
yeah. We still look the same. You
Yeah,
know what? You really just
made you feel old.
succinct, not just, oh, you really just succinct something for
Mhm,
me.
mhm.
So I'm going to share something with you that,
Um,
oh my goodness.
I met her as Chanel McCullough. She now goes by Kelley Ivy, and we are going to get into her story of living life with vitiligo. Um, June is Vitiligo Awareness Month, and we are going to talk about her experience. I know you've probably heard different things in the media and in the news and in social media because of some other famous people you may know that have vitiligo. But we're going to get a, um, how should I put this? A raw, inside look at living life with vitiligo. So, Kelley, thank you for agreeing to do this today.
Thank you for having me. I feel humbled to be asked. So thank you so much.
I have found with trying to get people to do this show, some reservation and hesitation with wanting to share their story.
Mm.
Me as a person that has shared their story, there's so much power, so much freedom, so much um, glory, so much all the good things, all the good words you can think of, and sharing your story because there's other people in the world that may be going through the same things you're going through. May not be the same exact thing, but they are going through something that is similar to you. So you shouldn't keep your story to yourself because another person may be suffering because you won't tell your story.
Yeah, it's empowering. It's self-empowering to tell your story. And it's also self-reflective because even for myself, it makes me rethink the way I would say something to someone else versus how I think about something that I've been through myself. And it's like, I generally want to have, when I'm sharing, I generally want to have a more positive outlook and self expression about my own story versus when I'm going through something, it can be depressing or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you don't want people to think that your whole life is like Eeyore. So, but it does have Eeyore moments.
Yeah.
And so that's why sharing your story is good too, because it helps you re what is it? Re-narrate. There's a technical word for it, but I can't remember. But it helps you retell your story generally in a more positive way because you're speaking to an audience and of people, and generally that means you want to be a bit more positive in your delivery.
What is vitiligo?
Vitiligo is an autoimmune disease that affects the skin's pigmentation the skin's pigmentation cells called melanocytes. So the autoimmune system attacks these cells, and that results in people with vitiligo having vitiligo patches, splotches, or um, universal vitiligo, which is extreme. And you're probably most familiar with universal vitiligo because of the entertainer Michael Jackson. That would be universal vitiligo, when a person is goes from one pigmentation to no pigmentation. And it's very important to understand that it's having melanin to not having melanin. Um, I'm emphasizing that more than like color of the skin, because vitiligo affects about 1 to 2% of the world's population, and it affects all people groups and both genders. So about equally. So within 1 to 2% of each people group, you're going to find some people that have vitiligo. And the issues with it internationally is that it's often misdiagnosed. It can be taken to be other dermatological diseases such as leprosy, which also has skin patches. And there's also, we also get associated a lot with our cousins who are, oh my goodness, why did it just albino? I'm like, why did it just leave me? Albinism and vitiligo are not genetically related, but are the way we move through the world can be very similar, especially somebody with vitiligo who has universal vitiligo. They can People think that they are albino, and it's just worth letting people think that for the most part. But so
What there different types or forms of vitiligo? You touched on that, but can you
yes,
elaborate on what?
yes. So again, I think the most notable, like one we know, is universal vitiligo. Who A great example of that is Michael Jackson. Another form, I want to say it's called vulgaris, is kind of like a in between point when you're about you have about 50% of melanin and 50% no melanin, 50% or more melanin still in your skin. Um, and that happens over time, the loss of melanin. And according to that, it's very individual. So according to that particular person's immune system. So some people can lose their pigment a lot faster than others. And then there's focal. I hope I'm saying this right. And that one is, there's segmented and there's focal. And Google those, because now I'm probably mixing them up. But there's one where the vitiligo doesn't, it's more like a birthmark, and it doesn't spread anywhere else. So you might just be born with a white spot somewhere on your body, or a big white patch somewhere, and it doesn't ever spread. Um, so, and then, oh, I think because vulgaris, okay, there's this thing called bilateral symmetry. And generally, what that means is what happens on one side of the body happens on the other side of the body. And segmented one, I think it's like where it only happens on one side of the body. I think that's what it is, something like that. So those are the different types. I'm technically universal, even though my face right now has some pigment in it. My face tends to go through a cycle of being pigmented and being not pigmented, and that happens because I drive. And so the skin has on your face has hair follicles. They're very tiny, and the melanin in the hair in your skin and in my skin gets triggered by the vitamin D from the sunlight, and that's why my skin repigments on the side that I when I'm driving, because the sun hits this side. So so that's the science of it. So with the different types, you can have, and that's one of the arguable things, because they say once you lose your pigment you can't get it back, but there's actually been some advances. Right now there is a drug that I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's the first drug that is backed by the FDA. I want to say that's the right one. For treatment.
Does vitiligo affect just the skin? Does it affect more than the skin?
That is actually arguable. Opzulura. Okay.
Absolutely. That's the commercial I was
Yes.
thinking of.
Yes. Okay. So, vitiligo does affect the skin, but it also can have mental health effects as well. And it can also be a sign that something else is actually off in the body. And that's one of the harder parts of having the condition and dealing with Western medicine that has a different approach to health because they don't have a holistic approach. So, and the skin is your largest organ, actually, like it holds everything together. So, when you're if something is affecting your skin, then it's generally very important. And so across the board, a lot of dermatological conditions have connections to, they can be psychosomatic. So there could be something emotionally imbalanced that can be going on. There could be something else going on in your body that you're just not aware of, and your skin is showing it to you. But for medical doctors to get to the place where they can understand that is taking time. So, um, time and persistence. So, for myself, I found out that I have two different conditions, and I'm like, I feel like those conditions probably played into the development of vitiligo.
What is the origin of vitiligo, or when was it first recognized, or people knew of it?
Do you remember the time when we fell in love?
You're dealing with two Michael Jackson fans here, guys, and vitiligo. What do you expect that we not talk about Michael Jackson?
I love
we
it.
cannot not talk about Michael.
I did that because vitiligo is written about in a papyrus called Papyrus Ebers, or Ebers Papyrus. Eber has nothing to do with it. He's just the German guy that brought it. And I think deciphered it. But vitiligo is a human disease condition that has been noted in ancient Egypt, in Vedic texts, in Japanese texts. It's been with humanity probably since the beginning of humanity, in the sense that we're a very, very old species. And so its origins are within us, and going a little bit into just genetics and mitochondrial DNA and the Eve gene that women of African descent carry, where we are able to produce offspring that creates what is the rainbow of humanity. And so vitiligo is one of those predispositions that leads into that. Why we have different people around the world that have different characteristics in their presentation. And so it's a very humbling thing for me now. It used to be not humbling because everybody thinks you're them except for Black people. But now I've just come to have to come to terms with some things that are just what they are, and accepting that. It's like, okay, it's just, this is how in certain spaces I have to navigate, and I will be perceived more Caucasian than I actually am. My actual background is Afro-Indigenous, and so having that understanding, navigating that sometimes is difficult. Sometimes I will just tell people straight out, like, I'm African and Indigenous. And they're like, oh, well, you can see it. Yeah, it helped you a whole bunch, didn't it? Okay, let's move on. Otherwise, you just get people get stuck in this curiosity, and it's like, yeah, you're seeing what you're seeing, you know. Um, I try not to, but sometimes it's just like I know what the problem is, and let me just break this ice so I can move through a little bit easier. Like, because we are programmed in our society to want to know who we're talking to and who we're engaging with and what their cultural background is, and so that it's a fair-ish
I
assumption.
guess, but and I guess because I've known you for so long, I've known you for a time. But even if I were to meet you in your present presentation,
Mhm.
then when I met you, I would. I mean, some people have more ignorance than others, I guess.
Right. There's
So I would never assume just because your skin was lighter it is than it was that you were necessarily Caucasian because, and I don't know if this is ignorance of me because of your facial features. You have African facial features.
that is it's true, and it's very technical because also remember my face isn't always pigmented.
Yeah.
When it does go through one of the phases where when it is predominantly vitiligo, that's when I have to deal with more interaction, different types of interaction. Like my whole life changes because my appearance changes, and it's like, oh, I must be okay. Yeah, I forgot. That's one of the reasons why I even locked my hair was to just have a um, African aesthetic somewhere right away, so that when I am engaging with or Black people, African Americans, that I'm not being treated like a white person, because that happens um, when I'm universal in my face and if my hair is straight or whatever. And then my parents raised me in the valley of high desert of California, Antelope Valley. So I have this wonderful natural valley girl accent. So I'm like, I really throw people off super. And I know folks like love to make up their own like stories about me and never tell me what they really think. So, but I'll show a quick picture of when I was 16.
Mhm.
So, just a bit more butterscotch and versus where my face is now. But definitely you can tell like on my neck and everything, there's just a contrast there. And is my diagnosis started when I was 12. Uh, but the picture that I have, like the one picture that I have, it's so tiny, it's not worth trying to show you on the screen. But so I've had it for almost 25 years now, I think. So it's a part of my life is it's a part of my life. It's a part of my identity. I identify as a vitiligo person. Not everyone with vitiligo identifies as a vitiligo person or will put it in their racial or ethnic identity as well. But I do, because that's how I take it and identify it. And a part of my way of coping is identifying with it as a way to move through the world, which is how I take our ethnic labels and everything. It's like, yeah, it describes a certain culture, a way that you move through the world. So,
And it's very disheartening that you encounter that or experience that with people from the diaspora.
yeah, it's um, it's taken um, ironically, it's taken therapy and it's taken a lot of research on my part to come to a center where, one, because of being melanated, the targeted group in the world, to keep the world system in place, and there's certain ways of being that Black people have to have and have to practice to stay safe in certain environments. And I'm glad that I know what they are, and I've had to learn to just respect those ways. And it's like, yeah, in this environment, you're probably not going to be able to really engage in a cultural way because they need to stay safe in the environment. And by your engaging, that throws things off. So I've learned work and everything. I'm like, it really throws things off because people are like, why aren't you eating with the white people? And it's like, white people are eating together where? Oh yeah, they are all at the salad station, you know, like, oh yeah, look at them. I didn't even know that was a thing. like I didn't even know it was a thing. But it just so many things, little social things like that. Like it throws stuff off. Like I'm like, well, I don't want to go. Like it's not and I'll sit with anybody, and that also comes with growing up. It's ironic, but I grew up first through 12th grade. I grew up as the only Black person in most of my classes. So it's this irony of of now not being that person in the space when I go into different spaces. But it's a constant juggling of adjustments because there are different expectations based on different environments. And I'm gonna miss. It's like sometimes it's like, yeah, you just bomb that, and there's nothing we can do about it.
So
We're just
did
gonna
you
stand in this awkward moment.
so did you ever experience that at during our time at Howard?
Yes, yes. I had a season where when my face went full vitiligo for the first time. Um, that was a doozy. Let me see if I have a photo. So when my face gets like this, and it'll go back to this.
And that's no makeup or nothing to like even
This
out.
is with makeup,
Okay.
but it's with I want to say I am wearing the line Smashbox in this one. And I'm actually this is a great I'll just tell the story of this photo, but so I'm actually at the mall with my aunt and my is my sister there? I'm not going to put it there. I think it was my aunt and my mother, and so they're African American women, and they're actually more your complexion than my complexion. I hate have to explain it, but they move through the world a bit differently because of their complexion. Let me not say a bit. They move through the world differently because of their complexion. Um, and so they are at the fashion fair counter looking for um, their color and foundation. And I can go to any counter in the entire store. And that's the difference.
And what year was this?
This was 2010, I think.
Okay, so in 2010, people of my complexion could only go to one counter.
That was fully for them and most likely find the right shade, yes. Otherwise, you're going to have to go from different counters to find out who goes into what tones. And then that's the whole thing about how they mix it in undertones. Like it's a whole color theory thing, um, which is why Rihanna's Fenty name drop was revolutionary because it's the line, as far as I know now, it's still the line that has the largest um, color selection as far as how much pigmentation you have across the board. I actually tried it and it's a nice foundation, but it doesn't build the way that I need it to in order to navigate having vitiligo, but it's a good foundation. But I usually I haven't worn Smashbox in a long time. I usually wear Chanel. because I have a slight bias.
Why might that be, Kelley? Why did you wear that?
But it builds. It's
So Riri, if you see this interview, maybe you work my girl and she can help me with that for the building for people of her that experience the world like she does. So it can be better.
Yeah, it's a world in itself of continuing to readjust. And I told my mother fashion fair would not have my color, and then she needed to prove a point. So we did the fashion fair counter, and then fashion fair doesn't have my color, and now I have to deal with the emotional, ideas of, okay, so I can go everywhere except to the Black people counter, and it's ironic, you experience where the culture doesn't line up for everyone and how it has a tendency to make people feel other or alienated. And so now I'm going to have to go look for a Smashbox counter and see if I can find
it. Especially and we experience that a lot. It's funny that we're still experiencing that in the entertainment or fashion world.
Yeah. So it's very it's a work. My mom was very dominant with her approach to my vitiligo, and so wearing makeup was a part of how I navigated it for a very long time. But eventually, I wasn't rebelled. I just preferred not to wear the makeup, but she prefers me with makeup. And so that's also one of the issues that can happen with vitiligo people, especially children that are diagnosed with it, because you have parents that will take on that diagnosis, and that can cause some friction in families. This is my great grandmother. Mm-hmm. And so her name is Ivy Kelley. And so I had to do some things to help me just balance my mental health, and having my birth name in Eurocentric spaces like workplaces and things was really, really trying. And because they take Chanel like very, very seriously, it's very hard to buy things in my vitiligo shade, like, because stuff be gone, especially all the pinks. Good God, the number 25 lip pencil. Anyway, let me stop. It's
and I remember one time you would go, like your name was Chanel Coco. Like I remember that.
Yeah.
You embraced that
yeah,
that
and I do. I still do.
Okay.
But in Eurocentric spaces, it's just socially, it's too much negative energy. Like they can't handle it. And I'm gonna show up as myself no matter where no matter who, is around me. But the reality is like, oh wow, I am gonna keep having to navigate this world, and this name isn't me. Like I do this for fun. Y'all are taking this kind of way more serious than I take it. Like, you're making it actually not fun. And I was just like, okay, so I think that as a therapist, I want to have a name that I feel allows me to grow as an individual in my own profession versus being literally labeled in a sense. I didn't want to be branded does that make sense? Like having clients, like I need them to be able to take me seriously, and I already got this going on. So for people that aren't, vitiligo people, I'm like, this is enough. So let me make it simpler for myself and other people. And so, and also just having the knowledge of looking like my great grandmother.
You do look like her. I said,
was my saving grace. It's been my saving grace because it gives me another focus with my features, and that it grounds me, because it's like you're not by yourself in your family, because vitiligo can be very isolating and with things, and so having that picture um, was very, very instrumental in keeping me mentally balanced during that time. And once I changed my name and started testing it different places, I was like, okay, I wasn't crazy. Like it it really was bringing on more um evil eye vibes, like just people constantly I don't I guess I have a word, I call them power hoes. Like but it's like people that it's this irony because it's a disease, and but people specialize things, and so it's like, oh, you think you're special, and it's like, no, I think I have disease, like, so so there's this thing, it's like, yeah, I have to esteem myself and have confidence and present myself and accept my full humanity, and that it's also a different type of beauty, but to covet somebody else's disposition is really weird, and yet it happens. So that's why I one of the reasons why I changed my name. Also ancestral veneration, just elevating my great grandmother, who is Afro Indigenous. She's Choctaw and West African, and so that's also a part of my heritage. And I wanted to restore some balance of power, in the sense of Choctaw are a matriarchal First Nation, so the women were running it. And so me making her first name my last name was just a way to affirm that practice for myself and for Choctaw people in general, like Choctaw women, Afro Indigenous women in general, where it's just like, and with African Americans, everybody got an Indian grandma somewhere. That's how we all have our hair, right? but but yeah, so that's up with the name. So yeah, it's legal. It's been legal for 4 years now. Because February 2020.
Before the
It,
world shut down, before the world got
and then the
crazy.
world shut down.
The
Yeah.
world got crazy. It's all because you
That,
changed your name, Kelley.
right? It feels that way. It feels that way. When I was downtown Pasadena and all the little stores and shops were closed, I was like, it does kind of feel like I shut this place down. But I know I'm not that powerful. I'm not that crazy. But so yeah, so my birth name is Chanel McCullough. I have nothing against my birth name. To me, my changing my name is in keeping with a lot of other African American leaders who changed their name once they reached a certain knowledge of self, and they Kwame Toru is Stokely Carmichael, you know, um, Cassius Clay is Muhammad Ali, you know.
Yeah.
So there's this moment of reckoning, I guess, you come with, and it's like, you know what? I don't think I want to keep having this fight, and it's not going to go away. And I'm gonna, vitiligo's not going away, and the mystique of it isn't going to go away, because we don't teach genetics and everything on the level that at the grade levels that we should. It's like from like kindergarten up, everybody should know we're the same species and there's no such thing as race, but that's not what happens. This picture 14 years ago, and I'll look this way again, but this was the first time and that I experienced universal vitiligo on my face, and that was a doozy of a time, mental health wise as well. And Howard, I was still a Howard student, at the time. And so it was very, it's ironic because I just went through something in my graduate program, and it really taught me how well Howard University actually normalized my vitiligo, because in going there, they are one of the research universities for vitiligo and one of the teaching schools for vitiligo treatments for dermatologists. And so because of that, um, I didn't feel not included in the culture. It was just like a lot of when I would go talk to professors about it, they'd be like, yeah, you just need to go to medical school and go, they simplify things, but it was very helpful knowing that it was one of the that it is one of the research institutions for vitiligo. I still have some gripe about how things are what's being researched and why, but as far as one of the treatments that's less popular for people of color is actually the depigmentation treatment. And it is not skin bleaching. Skin bleaching isn't healthy for your skin because bleach isn't for your skin. Like, so stop doing that, please. Like, love the complexion that you got. But as a medical treatment for people with vitiligo, especially people of color, it is much harder to get the depigmentation treatment from dermatologists than for other people groups. And so the irony of it is that vitiligo tends to present more dominantly on darker melanated skin. So there's this irony of locus of control and yeah. So who gets to have what? What will the insurance company? What will insurance cover? For a long time, vitiligo was seen as just a cosmetic disease, and so people still, depending on their insurance, can't get coverage for certain treatments and things like that. So we have that's why the medication that was just passed by the FDA is very important, because the more that we can, it's this, we have to keep substantiating that it is an actual disease at the same time as being self-affirming and loving myself in my skin. And it sounds like you're contradicting yourself, but it's two different aspects of having vitiligo that you're actually dealing with. Because as a human being, no matter what you deal with, you should love yourself fully as a human being, as you present, however you present in your humanity. Um, that's what makes us wonderful creatures to be around. But when we don't do that, that's when we get a lot of mental health issues and things can develop. So loving yourself as you are is essential to being grounded and being a healthy human being. But when it comes to the medical side of things, that's when it's like, yes, but we have to point out more of the negative aspects of the disease to make a point, because it becomes medical and not social. So there's a social side, I guess you could say, and there's a medical side, and they don't always converge very well. And so still navigating that paradigm, because again, Western medicine isn't as holistic. And so in India, for instance, which is also another melanated Eurasian continent, India has a long history with vitiligo documentation as well, and research, because of them being second to Africa with having a melanated population. So their dermatologists tend to have more research and things for melanated people with vitiligo. But again, it's complicated. It's very complex. So
Yeah, and your mother's wanting you to wear makeup, that was a protection thing for her, wasn't it?
yes, it's it's unfortunate because right now I'm in a place of estrangement from my family for my mental health. Everyone with vitiligo doesn't have to do that, but for me, it got to a place where I needed to do that because I had to accept that colorism is real. And for me, I have to live above the fray in a lot of sense, where I'm constantly like, we are one race. I'm not I don't see color person. Like, no, I see all the colors. Trust me. I see all. Like, but what I'm saying is raising our humanity above walking in our full humanity instead of walking in the racialization of humanity, which actually dehumanizes humanity. So, but yeah, so people have unhealed things, and it may trigger them, trigger people in some people's families or whatever. And you have to figure out how to navigate that. And for me, in moving forward, I just needed a break, to figure things out for myself and not have other people keep trying to make me do something that will make them feel good about how I look. But that's not what my life's about. Like, like it's not. And so, but I'm grateful. I am grateful that in her being adamant about the makeup, it ended up making me very good at doing makeup. And a lot, if you look on Instagram, like a lot of my vitiligo sisters and friends, like we become these amazing makeup artists because you got to be able to contour and cover, build and blend in. Like, so you get really good at doing makeup. And also, one of the perks of having vitiligo is like every color shows up on you. So it's in fact, I saw a tutorial recently, and I thought she was a vitiligo person, but what she had done was take concealer and like lightened around her eyes so she could put on other colors. And I was like, oh, snaps. I don't be doing that. This put on my skin. But that's a adjustment. Like I'm pretty sure in the past, I had to adjust to that, especially over time. It becomes necessary to start embracing the change in pigment and the fluidity of it, because it's not something that I can control. You know, sound like Michael. I have a skin disease that I cannot control. I've probably watched that video a million times. Like I hear you, Mike. And I let people know I have a bias. Like I think I was in a class once, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna talk about this because this is something I will fight people over. And like, like, yeah, let me just not even like, because it's just not. We would throw hands like, over something. So let me calm down.
Over
But
my yes, yes, yes.